Hey, Shalom, Shalom. Kahallah, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learn the truth of the gospel of Yahweh Shai from. Honor, salutations, and blessings to the men that are preaching the gospel of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, in all sincerity, diligence, and truth. And peace, grace, and blessings be multiplied upon the house of David, which is the elect men, women, and children. So this is just a real quick news article that I wanted to touch on. I was just reading through a couple news articles, seeing what's going on, and this one caught my interest because, as we know, you had the Brics meeting that was happening this week. So there's a few different pieces of information, interesting information that is coming out of that whole meeting, which you had 6 new countries that are officially going to join the BRICS. I believe Argentina, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Emirates, and 2 more. I can't think of them right now. They might be in this article, but I was reading this article, which the title says "Expanded BRICS to Dominate Global Energy Markets." All right. So as the BRICS nations continue to expand, right, or should I say the BRICS bloc continues to expand and include other nations, they're going to start having more dominance on the global scale, global economy, right, global oil, all right, and having basically more of a international power, which ultimately is going to end up doing what? Taking more and more power away from the Western countries, which ultimately is going to lead to a war, because if one block or one group has power and other groups are forming, coming together to try to challenge that power or take a power away from that said, group that has the power, dominant power at the moment. That's how war happens. All right. It happens because of power. All right. And what you're seeing right now is a power shift. All right. A power tug of war, so to speak. So let's read it. It says the group will soon control nearly half of the world's total oil output, calculations show. Okay, and that's very interesting, because as we know, the westernized world is trying to move away from crude oil, right, fossil fuels, and move toward electric, right, and things being powered electrical. You see. But right as it stands, the U.S. dollar is still the world's currency, and it's because most countries trade oil using the U.S. dollar. But if you have these BRICS nations now going to end up controlling, as it says here, they're going to dominate the global energy market. And they are de-dollarizing, right? There's other articles in Russia Today, which is where this article comes from, that speaks about how these countries were saying that de-dollarization is irreversible, meaning there's no turning back. There's no stopping the de-dollarization. All right. So if that happens, then it's going to be countries, or the international sphere is going to be less reliant on the greenbacks, as they call them, the U.S. dollar greenbacks, as being the currency to trade oil in. So it says the BRICS group of nations is on course to change the power balance in global energy market. Right, and like I said, power balance, if it changes, it's not going to be a smooth transition. And ultimately, we know that Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob, Yasharallah, Israel, is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay. So these nations are trying to challenge the westernized, Western hegemony, thinking that they may be the ones to be on top next. But no, it's Yahweh Shai and the house of David that is going to emerge as the new and final hegemony monarchy of the world. All right, Second Esdras, the 13th chapter tells you that, which through the Spirit, Lord willing, we can get. It says the Infotech news outlet reported on Thursday, citing calculations based on 2022 OPEC oil exports and production data. According to the calculations, once the group expands after adding 6 new nations to its ranks, it will control nearly half of the world's oil production and reserves. Brics currently consist of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. However, at the group's summit in Johannesburg this week, it announced that Argentina, Egypt and Ethiopia were the other two. Egypt and Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates will officially join in January 2024. So, there's a lot of moving parts happening geopolitically, geoeconomically, which is ultimately the doing of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. All right, on the one side, you have this devil moving with his agenda, his sea change and digitalizing society, right? All right, forcing society to be in a more so they call it transparent and digital world. And on the other side, you have these easternized countries, except for Brazil and Argentina. They're on the west, but they have the mindset of the East because they're trying to move away from Western powers, right? And when you say the Western powers, you're speaking about the European powers. All right, even though America is not in Europe, it's basically a offshoot of Europe. So on that hand, you have these nations moving away from the authority and power that the westernized world, has on the world for the past, 100 years or so. So it says, according to the report, the group will greatly increase its weight in the oil market with the inclusion of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran. Along with the current members, Russia, and Brazil, these nations combined control 39% of the world's total oil exports, or 17.1 million barrels per day. The 11 nations of the expanded Brics will account for around 47.6% of the world's total oil production, data shows. So almost 50% of the Brics will control the world's total oil production. These countries are not using dollars, US dollars, to do trading in. So what does that conclude? That concludes that the world currency, using the what do they call it, the Petro-Dollar, in order to do trading, is going to become obsolete. Is going to become less and less effective, because if you have the BRICS nations that control 50% of the world's oil production and they're moving away from the dollar, then the dollar is not going to have a significant impact on the global stage. You see? So it says, in terms of oil reserves, BRICS will also control nearly half of the world's total 719.5 billion barrels out of 1.6 trillion. If Venezuela, which also has recently applied for membership, so you have these major countries that, America ostracized, right? America sanctioned Venezuela for a while. That's why Venezuela's currency collapsed, right? That's why over there they had to create a whole new currency because of the way America, basically destroyed their democracy, destroyed their government, destroyed their economy, right? It says, is accepted into its ranks, the group's control will be even greater, around 65.4%, so almost 2/3. In comparison, the G7 group of the leading economies, the US, UK, Germany, Italy, Canada, France, and Japan, controls only 3.9% of the known crude reserves, right? Analysts note that the expansion of the BRICS to the Gulf countries is likely to see the U.S. lose its influence in the global oil markets. Okay? And that word, influence basically ties into power. All right? America had influence in the Gulf countries because it would sell, weaponry, its technology to these Gulf countries, and in return they would get their oil, all right, or they would have to trade their oil in the U.S. dollar, which would ultimately benefit the U.S. Economy, because they had Saudi Arabia and these other Gulf countries say that they would only trade their oil in U.S. dollar, which now you have Saudi Arabia moving away from that. They're saying now we will trade our oil in the yuan, right? And if the BRICS come up with a BRICS currency, then that's going to be the currency that they'll be trading it, and that spells bad news for the U.S. economy. So it says Saudi Arabia and the UAE joining is extremely significant. The United States used to rely on the Gulf monarchies, especially Saudi Arabia, to exert control over the oil price. With their ascension to BRICS, it seems likely that America has lost any control it had over oil prices for the foreseeable future. So how are they going to try to get that, back? This is why I said you're going to have. This is how war starts. This is all going to accumulate into a world war. It says Irish economist Philip Pilkington said in an article to the British portal Unheard. According to Pilkington, the outcome of this week's BRICS summit also symbolizes the end of Iran's economic isolation. Something else that the America, used to have influence over, right, by putting these sanctions on these various different countries because they wanted them to abide by their rules. But Iran being inducted into the BRICS, now they're backed by major players. Salakia. They're backed by major players, right? Russia being one of them, and that's why the scripture tells you that in the book of Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, that Russia, or Gog and Magog, the chief prince of Meshach, shall be a guard unto them. All right, guarding them economically, militarily. You see. And we know that Gog and Magog is Russia. So it says, given that the country is the world's 8th largest oil producer and possesses the 3rd largest proven oil reserves, this is a substantial economic and geopolitical development, he stated. All right. So it said, as we've seen up here, right, this is extremely significant. All right. And as time progresses and more countries start to try to, become, more countries start to move toward this whole new BRICS bloc and away from the power of the, beast, which is NATO and the EU. Guess what's going to end up happening as well? Countries in the in the beast, countries in NATO and the EU, they're going to want to start to do business also with the countries of BRICS, because nobody wants to be left out of something that is developing and something that is becoming major, right? No, and these European countries are seeing that, hey, the only reason why the BRICS countries don't want to mess with us is because of America. It's because of the unilateral sanctions that America places, right, on countries. And they're like, you know what, we don't even really want to get down like that. All right, we want our economies to continue to, be bolstered and be productive. And the way that America is doing business is, in the fact that we are associated with America, is making our countries, making us become isolated to this growing, emergent, new, new Brics conglomerate, and they don't want to be left out. Okay, nobody wants to be left out. It's like you see, a group of cool kids, right, doing something, and then you over here with the person that used to be cool, but now he corny, right? Now nobody really wants to deal with him. Or like say you had a party, and somebody else throws a better party, and you like, all right, you know what? Your party, I don't want to be in your party no more. It's not fun. All right, they're over there looking like they're having a blast. So we're gonna leave this party. We're gonna go join that party. Okay, but let me get a couple scriptures real quick. Okay, so let's go to let's get this in the book of Joel. Where is it? Joel chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles." All right, because even though it's the prophets, all right, the Israelites that are proclaiming this, that are prophesying that all of this is going to accumulate up until the World War III and the return of Yahushai and the establishment of the kingdom being returned and restored back to Israel. But the Lord is having this being done through heathen nations. Okay, when we read about these nations that that are joining, that are about to go to war with each other, though you have countries like Brazil and Argentina, which you have a lot of Israelites that are in those countries. I mean, Israel's scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, but we know Brazil and Argentina is predominantly Israelite countries. A lot of those people that are in those power seats, could very well be heathens. All right, and even if they are actual Israelites, guess what? They're still in a heathenistic state of mind. All right, but the major players that we're reading about are heathens, like Russia, Iran, China. Okay, on the west, you got obviously the European countries, which are Edomites. So it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. All right, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say I am strong." All right, and see, war doesn't just start overnight. They don't, you just don't wake up and say, "Oh, we're going to war." There's a succession of events that take place. And majority of the time, it has to do with your economy, with money. You see, so these things happening right now are just lead ups to eventually the actual physical war. Now you got an economic war going on. Okay. It says, that's pretty much it on that. It says, "Let the weak say I am strong." And that's what the point, because a lot of these countries for a long time, they were weaker countries. You see, that's why they call them the emerging markets. All right. Economies that aren't, totally first world, but they're not third world. They're emerging. They're in the middle. So they're becoming stronger countries. And now they're getting together and they're becoming stronger and stronger together, challenging the power of the westernized hegemony, which is spearheaded by Babylon the Great, the whore that sitteth on the beast. All right. There's another article that I wanted to see. I'm not going to read it, but just a headline right here. It says, "Western countries not welcomed at Brics," says Moscow. Right? It says, "Only nations that do not enforce sanctions against the group's members can be admitted," Russian Deputy Sergei Rabakov has said. So they're telling you, like, look, we don't fuck with you. Okay, you want to sanction us? You want to try to use, as it says in the book of Isaiah, that's something else I wanted to get, because these sanctions, that are being done on these other countries, who are the ones that are spearheading it? It's America. They're the ones that put sanctions on countries. Okay. You had it here, Isaiah 14 verse 4 says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. And when you go into that word oppressor, it's a raiser of taxes. Basically, that's how Esau oppresses people, or oppresses countries, by taxing them. That's what a sanction is, right? It's basically a tax, a heavy tax. And it says, let me just go into it real quick, just for the edification. It says, how has the oppressor ceased? You go into that word. It's Nagash, all right, Nagash, which says what? A driver, exactor of tribute, okay, by a debtor, by implication, to tax, harass, tyrannize. And that's exactly what he does, raiser of taxes, okay? He tyrannizes, he harasses these countries by sanctions, which is basically an economic, economic warfare. So it says, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Your staff and scepter represents your power, your rulership. But Babylon's power and rulership is being broken. All right. And this is why we're seeing, as these countries are saying, these Brics countries, that there is a global shift in power happening. Right. It says, he who smote the people with a continual wrath, Salaki, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. Okay. And nobody's going to stop when nobody's going to stop the persecution, the destruction of Babylon the Great. All right. They're not going to sit back and try to come to its defense, because it's the country, it's the place that smote the people, the nations, as it says in Revelation, the 17th chapter, the whore that sitteth upon the many waters. Right. They did that in a wrathful way, in a continuously oppressing nations, man. All right. Taking away their resources, forcing them to follow and their drink of their wine. If they didn't, they would, militarily, destroy them, or economically destroy them. So once this place goes down, which we're seeing that happen, as it says in verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet, and they break forth into singing. You see? So, like I said, I didn't want to make this too long. I just wanted to touch on this. Here, I wanted to read this real quick. Where was it? Just getting to the point, the reason why I wanted to get this. It says, right here, it says, meanwhile, Rabakov also warned that the U.S. was piling up pressure on other countries in a bid to prevent changes in the global landscape following the Brics meeting and the group's unprecedented expansion. However, quote, the process of diluting the role of the collective West in the world affairs is irreversible. All right. So it's what? Its power is being diluted, and it's irreversible. But here, in this same article, they basically said that, however, it says here, however, he would not completely close the door on Brics membership for Western states. And that's not talking about America. That's talking about the EU, right? That beast hating a whore. If any country that had supported the sanctions regimes were to, quote, break ranks despite the tough discipline within the Western camp and abandon this policy, its membership application could be processed, the deputy minister said. All right. And best believe that you want to have countries in the West, in the European Union, that are going to break ranks. All right. Because that is according to the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. All right. And as it says in the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter, that what? Go straight to the point. It says, for the Most High has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will. all right, and to agree and to give the kingdom unto the beast until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. See, so they're only doing what the Lord, the Heavenly Father, the God of heaven and earth, all right, is telling them and making them do. Okay, so with that, Lord willing, this was edifying unto the elect. Until next time, on to the next one. Shalom.